Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Ryan Bowling. Listen, folks, I want to get right down to it. I was reading an article in the Epoch Times that really reaffirmed my belief in what I've been studying down through the years about the concerted effort to dumb down our youth in the schools. Now, this article is an extended article, so I want to read that entire article to you guys because it is packed full of information that will really, I believe, will really inform you guys and give you guys information on another level that will help you to be able to determine whether or not you even want your kids even continue, if you have children, even continue to go to these public schools. Okay. So I'm going to read this article, and periodically throughout the article, I'm going to be giving my own comments and adding things to what the individual is already saying. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and start this article off from the Epoch Times. It is entitled, excuse me, Dumbing Down Education, Key to Dismantling America by Alex Newman. So you already know where it started. Critical race theory, together with gender ideology and the man-made global warming hypothesis that's now being taught to young children, all have the goal of dismantling the United States as a free society, said Alex Newman, investigative journalist and Epoch Times contributor. There is a global effort coming from the United Nations and from China to build a single world system where individual liberty will be abolished, Newman told Epoch TV's Crossroads program. This new system is described as a multipolar world order, or basically the new world order. How many of us have heard of that term? See, this isn't as new as people think, and it's not a conspiracy theory. When people say, "Oh, that's just a conspiracy theory," don't just jump and assume something is a conspiracy theory. That's my suggestion. Don't assume it's a conspiracy theory until you've read up on it. Then when you've read up on it and studied it for yourself, then you can make the determination that's just a conspiracy theory, a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing people making up stuff to scare everybody. But clearly, based on this information that I'm reading right now, it's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a conspiracy theory. And I've been studying this stuff for some time. He says this new system is described as a multipolar world order as opposed to the current unipolar world order, where the United States is the undisputed sole superpower and the force in the world affairs today, Newman explained. To achieve this goal, the United States must be undermined, not just economically, but also intellectually and militarily. That's the key. This will allow other nations to be built up, other governments, especially the communist Chinese government, to grow in prestige and influence in economic power for the purpose of really drastically reshaping the world order into this, what they call the multipolar order, where Russia and China and the so-called BRICS, 5 countries, like Brazil and India, will be kind of on an equal standing with the United States. Let me make a comment right there, real quick, before I read any further. And I hope I'm not giving this away too much, but the objective is to basically destroy America's founding principles, destroy its founding principles, demonize its founding principles, and bring these other countries up. And you say, well, what's wrong with bringing other countries up? You know, what's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with it. But countries like China, and I might be reading ahead of this. I already read the entire article, but I might be pushing ahead of this. But countries like China, even though they use capitalist means and their economy is on par with America, they have the second best economy, depending on how you look at it. The regime is made up of communists. If China becomes the number one country in the world, then communist ideology will be the ideology that is the prevailing ideology, not capitalism, not freedom of religion, and not freedom of expression, which is an American concept. But you'll see, we're going to read further in this. See, this is an agenda. But America, at least the ideas and the essence of what America is, has stood as an obstacle to that agenda. So if you want to make this agenda possible, you're going to have to undermine the principles that the United States was founded on. There you go. According to the World Economic Forum's 8 predictions for the world in 2030, so see how far away, that ain't long from now, what is 8-9 years from now, which are summarized in a video posted on Twitter, the United States will no longer be the leading superpower, but the world will be dominated by a handful of countries. The Chinese regime is promoting critical race theory through its state-run media right here in the United States, raising big questions about why this is happening. And hold on one second here. Perhaps I'm going to do a little testing here. Well, folks, I was going to do a quick cursory course, if you will, or reading of the goals the 8 predictions for the world in 2030. I was going to read those, but we're not going to do that right now. So it's just too long. But anyway, let's continue on. Promotion of critical race theory in America is just a continuation of the Marxist tactics that divide society up into opposing camps to create a conflict between them, Newman said. So critical race theory, CRT, is not a conspiracy theory. And then use that conflict that typically Marxists will instigate as a vehicle to bring about a revolution, to bring about the discontent that will finally result in the overthrow of the old system. When Mao took over China, he divided people up into the red classes and the black classes. The black classes, of course, were the evil classes, the business owners, the Christians, the counter-revolutionaries, the landowners, etc. Whereas the red classes, those were the oppressed, the victims, and they were the workers, the landless peasants, and so on. The same tactic, listen to this, the same tactic dividing America up into oppressor and oppressed is used to instigate revolution in the country, Newman explained. But to try to tell an American worker that he is oppressed is less compelling. Think about that. Let me stop right there. Trying to tell an American person you're oppressed it is less compelling. Even if you tell a black person, I'm using this black person, even if you tell the average black man, you're oppressed, right? You're oppressed. White people are oppressing you. You know, they have to literally think about it. Man, am I really, they have to really think. And I've had black people come to me and say, man, white man this and white man that, he causing all these problems in my life. I don't have this, I don't have that. And I asked him, I asked this guy, I says, well, could you give me an example of how white people today are oppressing you? He's like, well, man, I don't know, but it's just, man, you sound like a fool. You sound like a fool. You should be able to give me some examples of how white people are oppressing you right now. Now, I can see if you was back in the 1920s and 30s, but you ain't. You in 2020 and 2021, Dumbo. So how is it that they're oppressing you? Give me some examples. If you can't explain it, then don't you think that you might have been manipulated psychologically? But anyway, let's go on. It is simply not plausible to tell an American worker who makes $60,000 a year, gets 3 weeks paid vacation, has a 2,500 square foot air conditioner home, 2 nice cars, and 4 color TVs, that they're being oppressed by their employer, Newman continued. Therefore, race was exploited to divide America and conquer the society, Newman says. See, these Marxists know what they're doing. So they use race because there has been racial issues in America in the past, right? So they use race. America is almost unique in the world. It is not really like a lot of other nations that have the same ethnicity, the same history, the same background, Newman noted. America was different. America was founded on ideas. The idea that God created everyone equally, the idea that God gave everyone rights, the idea that government exists for the purpose of protecting these rights. That is the foundational principle that America was founded on. Liberty and the fruit that come from that, such as the incredible prosperity, the innovation, the living standards, or even the equality, the safety, and the reduction in human misery were unprecedented in human history, Newman said. So to overthrow that old order, you need some kind of very powerful, very seductive mechanism. Now, children in school are taught if your ancestors came from Europe, you're automatically part of the oppressor class. See? Marxism, classic Marxism. If your ancestors came from, say, Africa, you're automatically part of the oppressed class, he continued. Newman pointed out that not only race is used to divide American society, but also gender. Those who are heterosexual or identify with their birth gender are also considered oppressors. So all you straight people, especially white people, you straight and white, oh my God, you Satan, you the Antichrist. You demonized. See how the Marxists are working to divide us, and people are falling for it. He believes that the only way such tactics are possible is to have an uneducated population. A well-educated people never would have fallen for these tricks. Absolutely, because well-educated people are thinkers. Traditionally, throughout Western history, training the mind to be able to think, understand things, and acquire additional knowledge was at the core of education, Newman said. Absolutely. Education used to focus on understanding and gaining a better knowledge of God and the nature of good and evil, the purpose in life, he explained. Institutions such as Harvard, University, Princeton, and Yale were founded as Christian institutions. Absolutely. They were founded as Christian institutions. And not only that, even though some of the founders were agnostics, Masons, Illuminati members, and all these other things, they were all trained in the same schools. So they learned the Bible. The Bible was taught in these schools. It was a part of the curriculum. They learned the Bible. So therefore, even though they may not have been believers in the Bible or Christians in the Bible sense, they adhered to many of the principles of the Bible. So therefore, they understood that in order to create America, everybody had to be on one accord on universal principles based on these biblical concepts. So they all came together and said, okay, well, we can come together and unify on those concepts. So you see, even though all these people didn't believe the same, all these founders and framers of the Constitution didn't all believe the same, they believed in the universal principles taught in the Bible. But see, in order to reshape America, you got to get rid of all of that. The departure from traditional education started more than a century ago and was led by John Dewey, who was also a professor at Columbia University and is called the father of American progressive education. According to Dewey, he was influenced by Darwin's theory of evolution. Children should be weaned from the traditional tutelage of parents, religion, and culture and given free rein to adapt to their environments. In other words, don't teach them math, don't teach them history, don't teach them science. They need to be separated from that. That's old-fashioned, that's outdated. This is what's been going on in our school systems for decades, people. Dewey was a pragmatist and moral relativist. He believed that there was no unchanging morality and that people were free to act and behave as they saw fit. In 1929, the rector of the Second State University of Moscow, Albert Pinkerviff, as quoted by Robin S. Eubanks, wrote favorably of Dewey, saying that his ideas were very close to those of Marx and the Russian communists. Biographer Alan Ryan, also quoted by Eubanks, wrote that Dewey supplied the intellectual weapons for a decently social, democratic, non-totalitarian Marxism. Newman noted that Dewey advocated in his writings for a system that in reality would dumb down the population, but Dewey didn't say it explicitly. According to Newman, Dewey asserted that there is no need to teach kids how to read, write, and do math. Instead, Dewey recommended that what kids really need is to be properly socialized. They need to be just totally immersed in this collectivism so that they will understand that they need to work for the good of the whole. So individuality is wiped out, which is a communist concept. The individual doesn't matter in a communist community. It's all about building a communist community in reference to what the state, the country, the government wants. So he says, don't need to work for the good of the whole, the good of the collective, as opposed to their own individual benefit or the benefit of their family. Newman cited Adam Smith, a Scottish economist and philosopher, to argue that in, quote, a free market system based on private property, the individual's own pursuit of his rational self-interest ends up benefiting society more than if he was actually going out and consciously trying to observe and benefit society. Absolutely. Because fair exchange, no robbery, someone told me. In a capitalist situation, okay, we have control of your own assets and your own property. You benefiting yourself and the people you selling the products to. In a socialist or communist society, it isn't fair exchange, no robbery, because the government robs the person that owns land and owns property. They rob them by either taking it from them forcefully or taking it from them through high taxation and overregulation, and then giving it to people who haven't earned it. There is no fair exchange. There is no fair exchange there. Somebody got robbed and somebody was given money and property that didn't earn it. It's an evil system. He provided an example of a baker who makes cheaper, better tasting bread than his competitors in order to make money, thus benefiting his community. As an example of Dewey's approach, Newman cited the state of Oregon, where testing for proficiency requirements to graduate from high school have been discontinued. So a student who is unable to read, write, or do any math can get a high school diploma. Did you hear that, people? Newman pointed to National Assessment of Education Progress data, which shows that less than a third of public school students are proficient in reading, writing, arithmetic, or any other core subject. Mark Barliman, a professor at Emory University, wrote in his book that on the history exam of the 2001 National Assessment of Education Progress, 57% of students scored below basic and only 1% achieved an advanced score. John Taylor Gatto, a senior teacher and education researcher in New York City, said in his book, pick up a 5th grade math or rhetoric textbook from 1850, get this now, and you will see that the texts were pitched then on what would be today be considered college level. Now get this now, pick up a 5th grade math book or rhetoric, 5th grade, people, 5th grade would be considered college level today. See how far we've come? We don't think that's important? Thomas Sowell, an American scholar, and I'm pretty sure some of you have heard of him, an American scholar and a senior fellow of the Hoover Institute at Stanford University, observed, it is not merely that Johnny can't read or even that Johnny can't think. Johnny doesn't know what thinking is because thinking is so often confused with feeling in many public schools. Charlotte Thompson, a former senior policy advisor to the U.S. Department of Education, wrote in 1999, the reason Americans do not understand this war is because it has been fought in secret in the schools of our nation, targeting our children who are captive in classrooms. The wagers of the war are using very sophisticated and effective tools. This has been going on for decades, but parents don't know it because they send their kids to school and they go to work. They don't know what's going on at school. They assume that the teachers got their best interests in mind. Come find out that the teachers did not have your best interests in mind, your kids' best interests in mind. They were doing it undercover. It's our children they're after. Instead of learning basic skills, children are taught in school critical race theory. Children in kindergarten are taught that they might have been born in the wrong body and they can take pills or undergo a surgical procedure to reflect their true selves, Newman said. They are also being taught a distorted version of American history and world history, he continued. They don't teach the children almost anything about the history of communism, the history of socialism, the history of collectivism, because if the children understood what has happened where these ideas have been implemented, they would recoil in horror when they saw them being implemented here. Absolutely. It's not what they say a lot of times, it's what they don't say. Considering the unprecedented scale of attacks on parents trying to be involved in the public school system, Newman advises concerning parents to remove their children from the public school despite the hardships and sacrifices that such a move may imply. I tell parents at this point, if you love your children, if you want them to be successful, well-adjusted, sensible, well-educated, clear-thinking individuals, your only option is to remove them from the public school system. You will not be able to get your children a decent education in a public school anymore, Newman concluded. And that ends that article there. But I wanted to read the entire article. Because I wanted us all to understand what's at stake here. We need to understand what's at stake here. Our children are in danger. Now, I wouldn't go to the extreme of saying remove your children from the school. That's his opinion on it. But clearly, he's given objective facts there. That I've been studying that for a long time. And he's given objective facts there about that our children are being undermined. They're being purposely dumbed down to push this agenda, this global agenda. And so I hope you all have gotten something out of that. If you have any comments on it, leave your comments in the comment section below. What do you think about what I just read? Do you believe this is just a conspiracy theory, or do you believe that there is a concerted effort to decrease the intelligence of our young people, to dumb them down, to dumb down our children, in order to basically strip them of any processes of thinking, in order to fulfill this global agenda that these evil communist Marxist people have set for this world? What do you guys think? I know what I think. I believe it's true. I see it. I hear it in the young people. You ask the average young person certain questions they don't know. That's purposeful. It's not by mistake. So if you guys have any comments, leave your comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, press the like button, share this video, and subscribe. God bless you all, and see you again.